because we're so far behind, we're going to jump into the Wife of Bath's tale and prologue. I usually go over the general prologue a little bit more, but since I'm not giving an objective exam, I'm not going to. The Wife of Bath's tale is part of what's called, or has been called, the marriage group. Okay? There are a group of tales that deal in one way or another with the theme of marriage. Okay? And hers is one of those. The Miller's Tale kind of does. I think it's it's either the Man of Laws or Shipman's Tale, kind of. As in your introduction doesn't mention anything about that. But Chaucer seems to be addressing some issues involved in marriage, let's say. Now, when the Canterbury Tales opens, you get to the end of the general prologue, and as we discussed the other day, what's the first tale told? The Knight's Tale. Why? Nobility first, upper class. He's kind of the status leader of everybody. Nobody is of a higher social status than the knight. The knight tells a long tale of romance. Not modern Harlequin, Fabio heaving breasts on the cover romance, but a tale of romance and knightly daring do, chivalry, etc. Two young knights, best friends, best buds. They get captured, I think it is by Theseus actually, and they get locked in prison, and they're, whiling away the time in prison, and one knight looks out the window and he spies a young lady, falls madly in love. The other knight does, falls madly in love. They both love the same woman. They've never spoken one word with her, etc. And the poem goes on. The tale goes on. That tale ends, and Harry Bailey kind of suggests who should speak next, and the miller interrupts him. The miller's drunk. Read the description of the miller in the general prologue. Big guy, speaks with a somewhat northern accent, big old mole on his nose, and out of the mole he's got red bristles. Okay, he's got flaming red hair. Okay, and he cheats people when he grinds their flour at the mill. He puts his thumb on the balance, on the scales, to make it look like they have more stuff than they actually do, because he then skims extra off for himself. Okay, so he tells a tale that inverts the tale that the knight told. Okay? The knight told this tale about honor and chivalry and nobility and courtly love, and the miller takes all the honor, the nobility, the courtly love, and eviscerates it. In other words, he takes, something that is quote-unquote pure and high and honorable, and he gives you the TMZ version or the BuzzFeed version or, whatever version. The Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump version kind of a thing, all right? So you have, in the miller's tale, you have, a young wife named, Allison, who marries an old man, and the old man can't satisfy her, so she falls in love with a young student named, I don't have him up here, Nicholas, I think it is, and yet there's another person who's in love with her named Absalom, and so it's this kind of constant tension, okay, because she doesn't love the other guy, Absalom, so a lot of rip-roaringly funny, hilarious stuff happened in this tale. Why? Two reasons. Remember the other day I said, a guy named Lumiansky wrote a book based upon, or taken as a title, the words that Chaucer says about the people that came into the tavern. Company of 29 of sundry folk. Okay, they have sundry folk, all levels of society. The knight tells a tale appropriate for his level of society. Think Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. all this detail about knightly dress, etc., etc. Okay? The miller tells a tale that fits his level of society. Because where is he? He's not up here at the top. He's also not down here at the bottom. He's in the middle towards the bottom. He's not really above the middle. Okay? But is the miller going to enjoy a tale about the highfalutin upper class who are repressing us? Monty Python, you know. No, he's not. So what's he going to do? He's going to tell a tale that takes this and turns it on its head. It makes fun of it. It's what's called, two different ways to understand this. It's either a fabliau or a burlesque. Okay? It removes all the nobility and you're just left with the dirty, raunchy sex, essentially. Okay? Then we get several other tales. Yes?
Do we call it like a parody?
Yeah, I mean, it parodies it. Why? Because he's making fun of the upper crust. Now, notice, could the miller normally, in the context of being in the company of the knight, make fun of somebody like the knight?
No. But they all been drinking.
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily when they begin their trip. They begin in the morning. They're usually not drinking in the morning, but the miller, the implication is, miller's always drunk.
He's an alcoholic?
Probably. I mean, he's one of the people with the very red face. Pretty much a dead giveaway, okay? So this is a context where each person can kind of tell the tale that they like to tell. In other words, Chaucer, as the phrase usually goes, fits the tales to the tellers. In other words, the description we get of the tellers of tales in the general prologue tells us something about the kind of tales those individuals will tell. Okay? For example, the nun's priest, the prioress, Madame Eglantine. What have we been told about her and her little dogs? She loves them more than anything. And she gets bent out of shape. She's really sorrowful if even a little mouse gets caught in a trap. So she's a highly sentimental person. Well, she tells a story about the Virgin and a little kid who gets murdered and how the Virgin, Mary, helps rescue the little kid. Who's the little kid murdered by? Those damnable Jews, etc. Okay? So she tells this highly overwrought, sentimental tale. Well, the miller is not sentimental. Cold, harsh reality of life. The knight, kind of, because he's been off fighting crusades and doing the Lord's work in the foreign fields, killing the Saracens, etc., etc. So let's get to the wife of Bath. We talked very briefly about the description of the wife of Bath. A couple of things in that description. We're told, one, she's wealthy. How do we know? Has she only been at home in the town of Bath all her life? No. She's been on pilgrimage several times. She's been to Jerusalem, I think it is, I'd have to go back and double check, 3 times. Okay. In the Middle Ages, to get to Jerusalem once. In our day, to get to Jerusalem once would be a major thing. In their day, it's even more. But she's been there, she's been to Spain, she's been to Germany, she's been all over. So she's got funds. What else about her? How many times has she been married? She says at church door, husbands 5. She's been married 5 times. Anybody here Catholic? What's the Catholic Church's perspective on marriage? Once? Okay. Maybe, depending on the reason why you're no longer married to the first one, maybe twice. But pretty much after that, it's a no-no. Okay? Why? Well, in the medieval church particularly, marriage was kind of, emphasizing the kind of, a necessary evil. Why a necessary evil?
get kids.
Yeah. You got to keep the race going. One thing. Humanity. You don't have sex, you don't have children. So procreation, I mean. The other reason, I'm not casting aspersions on anybody here. We're all horny. We all have hormones. We all have urges. Best to channel those urges. St. Paul talks about it. So the church said, we got to channel those urges in marriage. And here's the kicker, however, for the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages interpreted some of the writings of St. Augustine to say that procreation, the act of sexual intercourse, is bad. It's sinful. So, you get married to have sex. Why? Because people will die out if we don't have sex. But don't enjoy it. Do it to keep the race going, but don't have fun. So, kind of you get your minds wrapped around this. So, part of what was taught was, okay, you can get married once. And, if your husband or wife dies, second marriage would be fine. If that husband or wife dies, you're celibate from that point on. You become mentally, if not physically, a monk or a nun. You just accept that's your new status in life. You don't have sex outside of marriage. Why? Because that's adultery. That's cardinal sin. You go to hell. Okay? So, how many times has she been married? 5. Why? I think because Chaucer is alluding to a biblical character. And I'm not talking, Solomon with his 700 wives. 700 concubines and 300 wives. The man was crazy. Might have been the wisest person in the world. Utterly crazy, okay? One, hard enough.
But how many do you think he actually interacted with on a regular basis?
Well, define interacted. Apparently he had 300 and 700 because he liked to interact a lot. Okay. In the Gospels, Christ meets a woman at a well in Samaria. Where is Samaria? Or what is Samaria for a good first century Jew?
Isn't it like a place in Judea where basically everybody avoided it?
Yeah. It's
like they considered the Samaritans like filthy almost.
the modern day, it's like the West Bank. It's pretty much incorporates all of the West Bank. Okay? Yeah. The Samaritans were dirty. Like mudblood, if you're familiar with the Harry Potter term. They weren't pure Jews. They had intermarried with others. That's why Jesus, tells the Good Samaritan thing. So they're making their way through Samaria. Jesus is thirsty. He sends the disciples off to get food. He goes to the well to get water. A woman shows up. He says, give me a drink. She goes, you ain't from around these parts, are you? Because, I'm a Samaritan. And you Jews, you don't. He says, if you knew who it was who was asking you for a drink of water, you'd say, give me a drink of water. She goes, what do you mean, buddy? You don't have any pitcher. He goes, yeah, but the water I'll give you, you'll never be thirsty. I'd like a drink of that. And he says, go call your husband. Well, I'm not married. He says, that's right, you're not married. You've had 4 husbands, and the one you're with now isn't your husband. Holy Jesus! She falls down before him. You must be the Son of God, because people don't know that stuff. Okay? That, I think, is the image Chaucer has in his mind, the woman at the well. All right? So, she's had 5 husbands. The whole, almost the whole, of the prologue to her tale is about what? Her 5 husbands. Her relationship with her 5 husbands. What kind of relationship has she had with them? Are these all men who died of natural causes at good and appropriate times? No. Did she kill any of them? Well, not necessarily. Okay. But one of the things she talks about in the prologue, and notice, by the way, how long the prologue is. The prologue to her tale is 828 lines. Okay, now what is a prologue? It literally means the before word, or the word before. That is, the word before the real word I want to tell you. The real word she wants to tell us, the real tale, is only 407 lines. The introduction is longer than the book, in other words. Okay? Why? Well, because apparently what she says in the introduction, the prologue, is really important to her. And it serves as what? It sets up the tale. Okay? And everything we read in the prologue kind of flows out of the description Chaucer gives us of her in the general prologue. You know, for example, she'd get really angry if one of the young ladies of the diocese or parish showed up and stood in the offering line in front of her. She'd kind of take mental note and go, "You're going down, bitch." Later on, she's going to take him down a notch. Why? What's that tell us about her? What does she think of herself?
She's very self-important.
Top. Self-important. Okay? But the narrator also tells us about her. Who is the narrator, by the way? Which Chaucer? It's not Chaucer, the author of the Canterbury Tales. It's Chaucer, the persona within the tales. It's Chaucer, the pilgrim on his journey. That is not the same Chaucer as the author of the tales. How do we know? Because when that Chaucer comes to tell his tale, he's a fool and a moron. He's a babbling idiot. His tale is so bad, they cut him off. The only one. Okay? It's extremely boring. I mean, highly didactic. So Chaucer creates an image that he then uses as the narrator. All right? So, in his description of her, I mean, we get this, you know, she thinks very highly, she's extremely religious. How do we know? Because she went on all those pilgrimages. But notice, she's extremely what about her being extremely religious? She's extremely proud of it, and she's going to push it in everybody else's face. Humility? Not so much. Okay? So she gives us the general prologue. She gives us her prologue. What is one of the themes of her prologue? I mean, she talks about her marriages. Why? I mean, she just, you know, yeah, I was married to John, and we had a good time, and then I was married to Frank, and then I was married to Tom, and then I was married to Jenkin is one that is mentioned by name. What kind of relationships does she have with some of her husbands? Hammer and tongs. They're just going at it left and right. One of them, I think it might be Jenkin, I can't remember off the top of my head. One of them likes to do what? To/with her. This isn't some weird kinky sex thing. He likes to read to her about what? The proper role of women in marriages. And what does he read from? These great, what are called, modern scholarship, more so than earlier scholarship, anti-feminist tracts. Women need to be in their place, you know, subservient to their husbands, slaves, servants, cooks, cleaners, laundry doers, etc., etc. What is her attitude toward that? You know, she gives him the middle finger salute and says, "To you, buddy." She eventually starts tearing up his book, and they beat on each other. Right? Why? What kind of woman is she?
She's very proud.
Very proud. What else?
Independent.
Independent. What else? Strong-minded? Subservient? No. She gets angry when the ladies stand in front of her. Okay? She is what some have... She is, as what some have called her, a proto-feminist. Now, because the word feminist today has so many multiple meanings, are we talking first wave, second wave, third wave, you know, intersectional, whatever. What is, if Chaucer means this word, what does he mean by this word?
Women first. Somebody who chafes at the
Is it women first? Someone who chafes at the normal conventions. Okay? I think if Chaucer means anything, he means this. And that's it. That's equality. That's it. It's not that women are better than men. It's not that men are lower than women. It's that in marriage, men and women are equal. They each have what? Roles to play. And the male's role is the male's role, and the female's role is the female's role, and neither one is above the other. Okay? Why do I think that? Because of the tale that she then tells. What kind of tale is it? Where is it set? Who is it about? We just read one. What kind of knight? Whose court? Arthur's. This is King Arthur's court. This is Camelot. The very same Camelot that Morgan Le Fay sent Sir Bertilak de Haut Desert to, dressed and changed as the Green Man. For what purpose? Why did she send him there as the jolly green giant, you know?
To death.
To scare Guinevere to death, and what else? It's not only that. If you put that on the quiz, that's fine.
To test Gwen's courage,
Is it Gawain's courage?
Arthur's courage.
To test Arthur's, but not just Arthur's. The whole court. To test its what? Its reputation. She sends the Green Knight to prove, are they really all they're cracked up to be? Why? Because it's pretty clear Morgan Le Fay doesn't think they are. Well, you know, she has the dirt on Arthur, so to speak. She knows what she and Arthur have done in the past. The implication is maybe the others don't know so much. So, the tale begins. We're going to skip the words between the Sumner and the Friar. They're another pair that take a single course on Chaucer and find all kinds of good stuff. In the old days of King Arthur, of which that Britons speak great honor, all was this land fulfilled of fairy. That is, there are fairies running everywhere. You can't walk anywhere without bumping into a fairy somewhere. Okay? Elf, person from the other world. The elf queen with her jolly company danced full often in many a green mead, that is meadow. This was the old opinion as I read. That is, this is what people actually believe, as the books tell me. Okay, that's cool. I speak of many hundred years ago. Now, when is she speaking? 1390s sometime? If we take the dates of the composition of the tales to be terminus with the actions of the story. So many hundred years ago. Old English period, possibly. Okay? But now can no man see none elves more. We can't see any elves anymore. Why? For, that's because, of now the great charity. What does she mean by charity? Alms? Giving out, helping the poor? No. Love. Caritas. The word charity comes from the Latin caritas. It means love. It means kind of love of fellow human beings. Okay? Because of the great charity and prayers of limiteurs and other holy friars. Now, she mentions limiteurs and other holy friars. Why? Because of those lines 829 to 856, where the Sumner and the Prior kind of interrupt. I mean, she finishes her prologue, and then those two start jabbering at each other. And she's got to kind of take their knees out from under them. The reason why we don't have any elves around anymore, or can't see them, is because of these holy men. Kind of facetiously holy, that search every land and every stream as thick as motes in the sunbeam, blessing halls, chambers, is page 345, blessing halls, chambers, kitchens, bowers, that is bedrooms, cities, burgs, castles, high towers, throps, villages, burns, shipness, and dairies. In other words, these holy men do what? They're walking around with holy water, blessing everything. Well,
Is it banishing the other world?
and they're banishing the other world. All right? See, probably not as much by Chaucer's day. In the High Middle Ages, 1100, 1300, there was a common popular belief that the world was populated not just by us, and not just by elves, but also spirits. And I don't mean, spirits of the dead. I mean supernatural spirits.
Like gin.
Like jinn, okay? Demons, angels, etc. But not demons and angels per se, but spirits of the air. Ariel, for example, in Shakespeare's The Tempest. Okay? They're all over the place. So one of the things these holy men are doing is, get out of here, little sprites and stuff. This maketh that there be no fairies, for there is one to walk with an elf. That is, because of this, there aren't as many fairies. So, skip a little bit. Back then, before all the holy men come blessing everything, line 878. Women may go safely up and down. In every bush or under every tree there is none other incubus but he, and he will not do them but dishonor. Look at your gloss. He will do them nothing but dishonor. Who? She's talking about the holy men, supposedly. Because in Chaucer, the friar, the summoner, the pardoner, these are not holy men. They are men who will, to use an old term, deflower the young maidens. Take the flowers away from them. Okay? Though the pardoner, it's implied, I think he's a pardoner. It's a summoner. It's implied he'll do it with the young boys. Okay? So befell, and once upon a time it happened, that King Arthur had in his house a lusty bachelor. And I kind of imagine if I were shooting a film of this, she looks over at the knight's son, the squire with the blonde curly hair, Chris Hemsworth, And he came riding one day from a river, and it happened that, alone as he was born, that is, by himself, he saw a maid walking in front of him, of which maid anon, maugre her head, despite her will, what? By very force, bereft her of her maidenhead. He rapes her. She's a virgin. What did the lady, Sir Bertilac's wife, say to Sir Gawain? Second day. Oh, you could take me. Kind of like, ooh, take me, fantasy here, He rapes her. He's a knight at King Arthur's table. What does Sir Gawain say in response to the knight's wife? Back in my country, we don't do that kind of thing. It's freely given or not taken at all. For which oppression was such clamor or outcry, and such pursuit unto the King Arthur. In other words, she raises holy hell. She doesn't just go quietly into the night. She goes to Arthur. You raped me. Not supposed to do that. That damned was this knight for to be dead by course of law, and should have then lost his head. But by chance was the statute then, but that the queen and other ladies more so long requested the King of Grace, that is, Arthur, King of Mercy, till that he his life granted in the place. The women of the court say, let us have the judgment. No, not a good sign. He's thinking, okay, I'm not going to die in pleasure. I'm not going to service all of them. They're going to, cut me up into little bits kind of a thing. Okay? to choose, give them whether she would save him or spill. The queen thanks the king. And then she says to the knight, you're in deep you-know-what there, buddy. You stand yet in such array that of thy life yet hast thou no surety. In other words, you're mine. You have no guarantee you're going to live. But I'll give you your life if you can tell me what thing is it that women most desire. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll take that bet. Beware, that is, careful. Keep your neck bone from iron, that is, don't go lose your head. And if thou canst not tell it anon, yet shall I give thee that. If you can't tell it right now, in other words, can you? Do you know what it is? But if you can't, she's kind of saying, don't say anything, shut up, because you don't want to speak wrong. I'll give you what? A 12th month and a day. A year and a day. That's the standard time allotment, a year and a day. And if you can't tell me then you're going to have to return your body to this place. Sad was this knight, and sorrowfully he sighs, but he may not do as he wishes. So he says, okay, I'm going to leave here. Why? Who's he going to ask? The other women with Guinevere? Does he think they're going to offer him the answer? No. So, 9:19, he seeketh every house and every place, whereof he hopes to find some grace, to learn what thing women love most. What's he thinking? Clothing, shoes, stocking, food, perfume, whatever. But wherever he goes, what does he find? 9:23 and 24. Whereas he might find in this matter, 9:23. But never could he arrive in any coast or region where he might find in this matter two creatures according in fair. Fair is fellowship, together. Wherever he goes, he can never find two women who agree. They always say something different. Some said women love best riches. Some said honor. Some said jollity. Some said fine clothing. Some said good lust of bed. Some say to be widowed. Oh, thank God, I'm finally done with them. And some said, lost my line. And some said married. Some says our hearts are most refreshed or eased when we're flattered and pleased. He goeth full near the truth, I will not lie. A man shall win us best with flattery, and with attendance, and with busyness, that is, waiting on us, hand and foot. Courtly love kind of tradition. That way are we best lined. Look at your gloss. Lime was used to catch birds. It's not an accident that bird is a nickname for women in English or in British speak. Okay? Some say we love best to be free, to do whatever we please, and that no man reprove us of our vice, but say that we be wise, and not at all foolish, nothing nice. Truly, there is none of us all, if any person would claw us on the sore, that we will not kick. In other words, you bother us and we're going to kick you. We're going to hurt you. Okay? Unless he what? Say to us truth. Try, essay, and he shall find it, that so doth. For we be never so vicious within, when we are held, unless we are held wise and clean of sin. Now, what is the wife talking about? Is she talking about that women want, not mix it up here, that women want men to think of them as being wholly virtuous?
No.
Okay, that's kind of what this part's implying, though. Okay? That this is what some say. No matter what they do, holy virtuous. This is kind of getting at something that will come up later in the poem. Okay? And it's a theme that is in that marriage group, which is John. Are you having sex with your wife every now and then? In other words, is she putting out? She is? Then don't worry where else she's putting out. In other words, if you're getting what you need, don't worry about where else she's getting what she needs. Okay? That's what's meant. Some say that great delight have we to be held stable and also discreet, and in one purpose steadfastly to dwell, and to not betray something that men tell us. In other words, oh yeah, you can tell me a secret. I won't tell anybody. Notice, when the wife of Bath says this, what might she slash Chaucer, since Chaucer is writing this, what might she be suggesting? If she says that some women say that we want to be believed that we can hold secrets, what might she really be saying? What is a stereotype?
Is that women gossip?
Women gossip. Can't keep their mouth shut. Don't tell them secrets because it'll be everywhere. Okay? So, she mentions then line 952. Ovid, among other small things, said Mida, you got a 3 in there, Midas from the Metamorphoses, that Midas had under his long hairs growing on his head 2 asses' ears. Okay? The which vice he hid as he best could, full subtly from every man's sight, except for his wife. What's the upshot? She spilled the beans. Okay? So he really wanted to keep the asses' ears hid. He didn't want anybody to know, and she told the world. Okay? So skip a bunch. And she finishes 982. You don't believe me? Read Ovid yourself. Meanwhile, this night, of which my tale especially, when that he saw he might not come thereby, this is to say, what might he not come by? What women love most. Within his breast full sorrowful was the ghost, but home he goes. In other words, it's not been a year and a day, but it's pretty close. He's far away and he's thinking, I give. I'm never going to find out. Why? You get 20 women in a room and they say 20 different things. It's like they don't know themselves what they want most. They, group politics, right? I mean, no Chaucer scholar has really dealt with that. I mean, ought to be looking at it from a very 21st century perspective. This is the group identity thing. If one person did, everybody must think this. Okay? So he goes on his way home, 990, and he sees in the forest a dance. 20 ladies dancing. And he goes very eagerly to it. Why? Because he's headed home, but he's thinking, I don't recognize any of those 24. Maybe this will be my answer. And hope that some wisdom should he learn. But certainly before he came there, what? They all disappear. Why? Elves. Fairy ladies. No creature saw he that bore life, save on the green he saw sitting a wife. Gloss. Woman. Wife doesn't mean married female in Chaucer's day, nor does it mean that in Anglo-Saxon. It means woman. Period. It's a shortened form of weefman. Woman. Human thing. Not woman male. Okay? Man there in Old English refers to humanity. It's not sexist. Okay? So, he sees her, 999. A fouler white there may no man devise. Devise. Imagine. So imagine the ugliest woman, you can imagine. Not even close. I mean, one eye's up here, the other eye's down here, nose is over here, one breast here, one here. It's, just uglier in sin. I mean, just. Again, the night this old woman began to write, in other words, what the hell? She might know. And he says, she says to him, Sir Knight, you, hereforth nor lies no way. Chaucer loves double negatives. He also loves triple negatives. He uses them. Mm-hmm. So if you think double negatives are bad usage, appeal to Chaucer, Professor writes something, go, look at Chaucer, dummy. In other words, what's she telling him? This road is what? Dead end. Literally, the road is a dead end. Metaphorically, the road he's on is a dead end. Okay? And so she says, tell me what you're looking for by your faith. Be honest. Peradventure it may the better be. These old folk know much things, said she. And he says, my dear mother. Why does he call her mother?
Because she's older than him.
She's old. She's not just older, she is older than him. How old is she? She's older than dirt. I mean, she's so old. He's like, oh my God, this woman is. And he calls her dear. Why? Respecting an elder. He says, I'm as good as dead. Unless I can say what thing it is that women most desire. Why does he feel no compunction about telling her this?
He's desperate.
He's desperate, one.
And like she said, this is the end of the road.
End of the road. What the hell?
This is your last chance.
What else? He's probably thinking she's so old, she doesn't even remember desire. Why not try? Could ye me wissa, I would well quit your hero. If you could tell me your desire, I could repay you well. Okay, now, he doesn't realize the import of his words. It's kind of like when Sir Gawain says, oh, kissing. Well, if that's what you want, sure, I can kiss you. And a whole lot more if you want. So don't ask. It's the whole lot more is the important part. And she says, what? Plight me thy troth here in my hand. Plight. Give. Promise me your what?
Give me your word.
Your word. Your truth. But it's more than just that. Later usage, 19th century stuff, you don't really hear this anymore today. When old traditionalists, a man goes up to a woman and says, I plight to you here my troth. What's that mean? You want to get married? That's what it means. An offer of engagement or engagement, as some call it. Plight me your troth here in my hand. It's the sealing of the hands that's, saying she's serious. The next thing that I require thee, thou shalt do it if it lie in thy might. And I'll tell you before night. Promise me, she is saying, and shake on it. In other words, you are now bound by honor that you will do the very next thing I ask of you, and I'll tell you what it is you desire. This is where this knight, whatever his name is, has failed negotiation 101. Because what does he not do? You tell me first and then I'll promise. Because what's she going to say? Buddy, ain't how it works. She's got all the power, right? She's holding all the chips. He's got nothing. He has nothing to grant her. Other than his word as what? A knight. Yeah, well, how much is his word as a knight worth?
Not very much.
He raped the girl in the forest. Not a whole lot. Okay? But he does. He says, sure. Here, have my truth, my faith. I grant you. I'll do what you ask. Does he have an inkling of what it is she's going to ask?
No.
No. Why not?
Because he doesn't know what women want.
Okay, because he doesn't know what women want. Why else? She's old. She's really, really, really old and foul and ugly. And he's thinking, marriage is the last thing in her mind. And she says, okay, your life is safe, and I will stand thereby. In other words, and I will second you. I will stand right behind you so that when you answer, this is what women want most. If they go, no, it's not, they'll have to answer to me. Why? Because she's saying, she's implying. All the women you've talked to,
Or younger than me.
okay, that. What else, though?
Less wise.
Yeah, close. They lied. They lied to you. They know what women want most. They just wouldn't say it. But she will. Okay? She says, upon my life, the queen will say the same as I. Let's see. Let's go now. So they ride off. They go back to Camelot. And the knight says, I'll keep this day my promise. Ready was his answer, as he said, full many a wife, 1026. Full many a noble wife, and many a maid, and many a widow, for that they are wives. The queen herself sitting as justice, sitting in the throne of judgment. They're all assembled. They're like, does he know? Because what's the implication? This is, the secret of the sisterhood. This isn't what you tell men. And he says, my liege, women desire to have sovereignty as well over their husband as their lover. Notice, as well over their husbands as over their lovers. The two aren't necessarily the same. Okay? And for to be in mastery them above. To have mastery over husbands and lovers. Supremacy. All the power. This is your greatest desire. Though you me kill, do as you desire, I'm at your will. It's the best I got. Tell me if I'm wrong. In all the court not was there wife, woman, nor maid, nor widow, that contraried that he said. In other words, you're like, damn, he got it. But said, yeah, he gets to live. And with that word, up starts the old wife, which that the knight saw sitting in the green. In other words, she wasn't standing right behind him. It's like she's over there, behind the bleachers a little bit, but she's still within sight. And she comes running up to him. Mercy, my sovereign lady queen. Ere that your court depart, do me right. I taught this answer under the night for which he plight me his troth. There. The first thing I would have him require, he would do it if it lay in his might. Before the court, then, pray I thee, sir knight, and she appeals to him. Make me your wife. And he's like, no, slit the throat. Why? Because she is so, you got to get the idea of how ugly she is, man. Tusks. Okay. There's another poem called The Wedding of Sir Gawain and Dame Ragnall. It's after, probably, Canterbury Tales, and it's after Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Because there is language in the wedding of Sir Gawain and Dame Ragnall that implies the author of that is familiar with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Okay? Dame Ragnall, it's a burlesque. It's making fun of this whole Sir Gawain purity model of behavior and stuff. Dame Ragnall is described several times in that poem. More ugly than you can imagine. Her teeth aren't like teeth, they're like boar's tusks. Curling down, up, pig nose, eyes all askew, ears, just hideously ugly. And it's exactly what we see in this poem, in this tale. Okay? So, Sir Gawain says, alas and woe is me. I know right well that was my behest. Yep, you got me. That's what I promised, all right. But for God's love, woman, choose something else. What's behind door number 2, Take all my goods. Take everything I own. Let my body go. Please don't, not me. Don't touch me. Nay, then, she says. I shrew us both to. Curse us. Why? Because I was a fool for telling you, and you are what? False. Nay then, for though that I be old, foul, old, and poor, I desire not, would not, for all the metal, nor for ore that is under the earth, or buried, or lies above, but unless I thy wife were, and also thy love. All the wealth in the world wouldn't get me to not want to be your wife and your love. In other words, and it ain't just enough to go through the wedding ceremony. We got to consummate the marriage. Wedding of Dame Ragnall and Sir Gawain, we see the wedding night. And Sir Gawain's like, damn it. Got to go through it. I may as well, stiff upper lip and all that British stuff. Okay? And just as he's getting ready to roll over onto her, swimsuit model, right there, no longer tusked, but she's been with orthodontist, Notice, now, would some men say, perhaps, that for my negligence I do no cure to tell thee the joy and the array that at the feast was that same day, to which thing shortly I shall. I say there was no joy in her feast at all. In other words, some people might wonder what everybody else thought of this. Was there joy in feast? In other words, were other knights of the round table going, ha! Oh, are you screwed? Oh, do you have coming what you're about to get? You raped the beautiful young maiden. This is what? Today, what terminology would we use? This is karma, man. This is you get what you pay for. You got back then, now you're paying. Or you reap what you sow, if you want to use a more biblical language. Nope. What's everybody thinking? Oh, come on. Come on, give him something. Ask him something. That's just not right, because you're really foul and hideous and ugly. Okay? So, he gets married to her. 1083. Great was the woe the knight had in his thought when he was with his wife a bed he brought. Okay? Your gloss. It was a custom for wedding guests to escort the bride and groom to their bedroom. He's probably like my dogs when I want to give him a bath. You're dragging him. Come on, buddy. Come on, we're going to throw you in there, He's like, no, Jesus said, His old wife lay smiling evermore and said, oh, dear husband, benedicite, that is, bless you. She's saying, I will bless you. I know tricks you don't know. Yeah, this is scary stuff. This is not the kind of story you tell, campers over a campfire at night. Fareth every night thus with his wife as ye? Is this what all men are like on their wedding nights? Are you behaving as other men? Is this the law of King Arthur's house? The law, the custom. Is every night of his so dangerous, so standoffish? I am your own love and your wife. I am she. I saved your life. And certainly, yet never did I never have I done anything unright to or by you. I've never broken any promise to you. What's she getting at? Your behavior here sucks, buddy.
Man up.
Man up. Yeah, both ways, What's she saying? Act like a knight. Not N-I-G-H-T. Act like a knight. Okay? What is my guilt? What have I done wrong? She's saying. For God's love, tell it. And I'll fix it if I can. Tell me where I have wronged you, and I will amend it. Okay? Amended. He's going, amend that, Go off, with the makeover TV show people and get a makeover, please. Alas, nay, nay, it will not be amended nevermore. Thou art so loathly and so old also. Okay, can't you do anything about being ugly and old? You're born ugly. I know you can do plastic surgery, you can do makeup, but you're born ugly. You're born beautiful, essentially. It's the luck of the draw. Gene, old. It happens to all of us. Doesn't matter how much plastic surgery you have. Okay? Some Hollywood actors and actresses need to stop. Thank you. Just need to stop, So he says, and thereto, that is, ugly, old. Oh yeah, and also, you come from so low a kind, a lineage, a heritage, that little wonder is it, though I wallow in wine. You're what to me? Beneath. You don't come from the right kind of family. I'm from the Upper East Side. You're from the Bronx, or Queens, or Staten Island. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter. And she says, oh, is that it? That's the cause of your unrest? He's like, duh, look at you, woman. I mean, get out of the mirror. No, don't. You'll break it, She says, 11:06, I could amend this. I could amend all this. He's thinking, wait, how are you going to amend being lowly born? How are you going to amend being older than dirt? How are you going to amend being that? I could amend all this if that me list, if I wished, before 3 days go by. So well ye might bear you unto me. So might ye well bear yourself unto me. Your gloss says, provided you might behave yourself well towards me. Okay? But you speak of gentilessa, that term we've talked about before, as is descended out of old riches, that therefore should ye be gentlemen. Such arrogance is not worth a hen. You say this comes from what? Now, she says old riches. She doesn't necessarily mean old money. The Vanderbilts, as opposed to the Gateses. Or the Vanderbilts, as opposed to the Bezoses. Or the Vanderbilts, as opposed to, I don't know, the Musks. Too many S's there. Okay? It's not necessarily that kind of riches. That is part of it. What other kind of riches is it? It's supposed to be a W. the Windsors kind of riches. The family name that goes back generations. My brother is kind of the quote-unquote family genealogist. Every year he finds new things. But we could trace our various lines. Malcolm, King of Scotland, the guy who was alive when Macbeth was alive. Okay, Margaret. You go to Edinburgh Castle, there's the chapel of Saint Margaret, grandmother. Wait, back. Nathaniel Hawthorne, Emerson, Thoreau. I'm related to all of them. So according to this idea, I ought to be able to walk in and go, oh, you little hoity. No. She is saying people who stand on that don't really have any ground to stand on. Listen to what else she says. Such arrogance. Notice she's saying that is arrogant to think what? Your gentilessa comes from your blood. Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, deals with the exact same idea. Okay? Look who that is most virtuous, okay, all the way, privy and apart, and most intendeth I to do the gentle deeds that he knows. What does she mean? Who is always virtuous, privy and apart. Privy. What does that mean? Have you ever heard of using the privy? It's an outhouse. Okay? Why? Because what happens in the outhouse? Private things. That's when you go for privacy. So privy means privately. Who is virtuous privately? Not as an act. Not to show everybody, oh, look how virtuous I am. Look, I'm going to write a check to this charity. Everybody look at me. $100,000. Aren't I wonderful? As opposed to those philanthropists. What's the word literally mean? Doesn't mean writer of check. Lover of mankind. Who do all that silently and quietly and nobody ever knows. She says, and they intend to do the gentle deeds that he knows. Gentle deeds. That's what shows gentilessa. Gentle doesn't mean soft, doesn't mean dainty. It means what? Noble. Okay? Take him for the greatest gentleman. Well, who is that in the Canterbury Tales? It's not the knight, it's not the squire, it's not the squire's yeoman. It's not the nun's prioress. It's not the partner, the summoner, the friar, the monk. It's two people. It's the parson and it's his brother, the plowman. The lowest members of their castes. The church is one kind of caste, status level of society. The parson is the lowest one. All right? And the plowman is the lowest of everybody else. And they're the two who actually practice this. Okay? She says, Christ desires that we claim of him our gentilessa. We claim our nobility, our honor of him. Not from our elders. For though they give us all their heritage, for which we claim to be of high parentage, yet they may not, what? Bequeath for nothing to none of us their virtuous living. I'm going to go off on a soapbox here. I know we're out of time. Almost. Too many Americans think because the United States was founded by Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, etc., that we have, therefore, a bit of Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Lincoln, I would say, in us. No. No. What did they do? They started it. What does each generation need to produce? New Washingtons, new Jeffersons, new Adamses. Because what were each of them willing to do? End of the Declaration of Independence. Sacrifice their fortunes, Honor and lives. They were willing to roll it all. Okay? They did what? Deeds. Deeds. Okay? Rather than merely, as we tend to do today, living upon the deeds of those done in the past. So, she says, our forebears, our ancestors, they can't bequeath what? Their good deeds. Just because you might have a father, I'll use an example. Billy Graham, Franklin Graham. Franklin Graham is not Billy Graham. Franklin Graham has some issues, I would say. One of them, he sucks up to power much more than Billy Graham ever did. Because if he didn't, he wouldn't excuse. And I'm far right wing. He wouldn't excuse seemingly everything Trump says and or does. Billy Graham definitely wouldn't. He might not publicly get in front of a mic and say, you're going to hell, you need to change. But from what we have of recordings and anecdotes of private conversations, the presidents he quote unquote counseled, yeah, he kind of spoke truth to power at times. Sometimes he didn't. Okay? But that's what she's getting at. We can't live on our parents' good name. What does each individual have to do? Build his or her own good name. So, she goes on and says, well knew the wise poet of Florence that height, called Dante, says in this sentence, lo in such manner rhyme is Dante's tale. Full seldom up riseth by his branches small the prowess of man. The excellence of a man seldom extends to the further branches. Why? Because in Dante we sometimes see people in hell whose children are in heaven. If the name of the Father counts for the Son should be there too. Sometimes we see parents, and this is the real proof of it, in heaven, and the children are in hell. In other words, they had great names, they had great riches, and they squandered both. Every person, 1133, knows this as well as I. She's kind of saying, and you should be aware of this too. Everybody knows this is true. If gentilessa were planted naturally into a certain lineage down the line, privy nor part, then would they never find to do of gentleness that fair office. In other words, if gentilessa were born in you, then what does that mean? Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren would be what? Just as honorable in behavior as their namesakes were. And yet what all too often happens is the further and further you get away from the tree, the apples what? Okay, not only fall off, but the apples fall farther and farther away from the tree. They're not like the rootstock. Okay? Take fire, for example. Buried in the darkest house, betwixt this and the Mount of Caucasus. Let men shut the doors and go thence. Then will the fire as fair lie and burn, as 20,000 men might it behold. His office, that is fire's natural tendency is to do what?
Destroy.
No, his office naturally will it hold. That is, fire will do what it naturally does. It lights. It gives light. It gives heat. Upon peril of my life until it dies. What's she talking about? Fire will behave as fire is supposed to behave. Water will always be what? Wet. Okay? Here, may ye see. So she's going to explain now what this metaphor means. That gentry, landed wealth owners, etc., is not annexed linked to possession. Since folk don't behave according to their operation, always as does the fire, lo, in its kind. People don't always behave according to their nature. Sometimes they go against it. For God, it knows, men may well often find a Lord's son do shame and villainy. You raped a woman. You're a knight of Arthur's Round Table. You're supposed to swear the Pentecost oath every year at Pentecost that says, I will rape no women. That's actually in the Pentecost oath. Ixnay on the aping rea imenwe. Just don't do it. Okay? You're supposed to help women. And he that will have price, esteem, or value of his name, his gentry, for he was born of a gentle house and had his elders noble and virtuous, and will not do anything himself. Look at the Kennedys. Look at the grandchildren of the Kennedys. Meaning Jack and Bobby Kennedy. I mean, Jack Kennedy, I know the whole myth built around him. The guy was hornier than a toad. I mean, he had interns in and out of the White House, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? But Robert Kennedy, according to the mythology, was quote unquote faithful to his wife. His children are slime and grandchildren. Why? They're living on the family name rather than going out and earning it on their own. Okay? Yeah. Whenever you think of, let me use this as an example. George W. Bush comes from an old family, old northeastern family. What did Bush do after he got married, graduated college, got his MBA and stuff? Did he merely stay in the Northeast and live and work based according to the family name? No. What did he do? He went to where in Texas? Dallas? Houston? No. Midland. About as far out in the middle of nowhere as you can get. To do what? Oil. Yeah, oil. In other words, tried to make a name for himself. Did okay. Had some other bad business dealings, Houston Astros kind of thing. Okay? But he didn't merely rely on the family name. Okay? So, she goes on, she, gives this big long speech. What's the upshot of it? Okay, what does he discover? What do women want most? Mastery. They want it all, man. And so what does he say? In response to her entire speech, you're right. You're right. And she says, okay, give you a choice. You can have one of these two things. 12 to 20. You can have me foul and old till that I die, and I'll be to you a true, humble wife. I'll never displease you. Or, so old, ugly, but true, honest, and I'll never displease you. Or, you can have me young and fair, and take your adventure of the repair that shall be to your house because of me. In other words, the grass that leads up to our front door, it's going to get worn thin, buddy. Because when you're not around, there's going to be men coming through that doorway. So those are the two options. Which one you want? I put me in your wise governance. You choose. Which one do you want? He's just given her mastery. And what does she say? Well, this is your lucky day, buddy. You get me as young and beautiful and faithful, humble, true, and I'll never displease you. In the wedding of Sir Gawain and Dame Ragdoll, he's given a similar choice. Similar, but a little bit different. The similar choice is, you can have me by day, where I'm gorgeous, just drop dead gorgeous, and in the evenings, when you sleep with me, I'll be ugly, foul, and boar's tusk, That's option one. Or option two, you can have me ugly, foul, etc. by day, so that when people go, oh, poor Sir Gawain, And at night, swimsuit model. And he's probably thinking, I could sleep during the day and stay awake at night. He gives her the choice. And she says, in giving me the choice, you do what? With her, there's a spell on her. By giving her the choice, that breaks the spell. And she's the young, beautiful one, now forever, essentially. Here, it's kind of a self-made spell. In other words, you chose right. You chose door number one, in which case you get me young, beautiful, true, humble, faithful, the whole 9 yards. What's her point? What's her, the wife of Beth's, point in the whole prologue and tale? What shows nobility? It's behavior. It's behavior. It's not that one has sir in front of it. Read about all of the quote-unquote sirs in English society. Half of them are pricks and the other half are jerks. Well, take that back. Half, maybe a fourth, and then there's a quarter good ones. Okay? Deplorables. Irredeemables. Right? She's saying behavior shows it all. Okay? All right. We'll stop there. So that's the end of the Middle English stuff. I'll put up an exam over the weekend probably, covering the Middle English material. Essay type again. I'll tell you when.